Hello everyone, Weather Jamaica here. Welcome to this updated video on the weather across Jamaica and the rest of the Caribbean. It is Monday evening, June 10, 2024. Now before we jump into it, please ensure that you guys like the video. I'd really appreciate it if you guys get this video up to 100 likes. If you don't know by now, that's how the YouTube algorithm works. We all like the video and then the YouTube algorithm pushes the video out to more weather lovers or rain lovers just like you guys, so that we can build this weather community in time for the peak of Atlantic hurricane season. That's August through to October, so that we can in turn keep everyone safe. Share this video with your friends, your coworkers, your relatives, and even your church brethren, and subscribe if you haven't yet done so. Leave a comment down below letting me know what the weather has been like in your area recently. Also feel free to ask any weather related question that you might have about the future of the weather in your specific area. Alright, so we're up to June 10, and we remember that all of these red dots were showing where we've had storm formations from 1850 to about 2009, and we saw a lot of storm formations right here across portion of the Western Caribbean and right here to the north of Jamaica. Now we're going to be looking at June 11 to June 20, considering that it is June 10, and we can still see that the Western Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico are hot spots for some amount of tropical cyclone development. You can also see two dots right here associated with systems that have formed across the main development region. So it's not far-fetched to have something from east of the Caribbean, which is why we have to stay focused and stay alert with what's happening across the tropics, especially with the very warm waters. And as usual, we know the typical storm tracks for June, having most of the systems pushing into the Gulf of Mexico and curving, if not across the southeastern United States, into portion of the southern United States. So let us take a look at the latest sea surface temperature anomalies of the Western Atlantic. We can see that we're still being plagued by very warm, record-breaking ocean temperatures, stretching all the way across the main development region from Africa into the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico. We see all of these oranges and some reds in there as well, way up to 2 or 3 degrees Celsius above the normal temperatures. So it is quite concerning, and with the La Nina starting to take shape across the eastern to the central Pacific, it's not La Nina yet, which explains all of the weather that we've been experiencing, especially the heat. It's still transitioning from El Nino to a neutral kind of pattern. We have to wait until we get the official information from the NOAA to declare that yes, it's finally neutral. Then when we get all of these waters to cool off, we can say, well, they can say yes, it's finally La Nina. And then usually the atmosphere starts to respond to the sea surface temperatures and brings forth a lot of La Nina like weather patterns across the Atlantic. We know all of the rain, tropical storms, hurricanes. It's just a waiting game at this point. And keep in mind that this map is just showing the sea surface temperatures. That's how warm the waters are at the surface of the ocean. And if we have a storm sitting over an area across these spots, there's a chance that it definitely gonna be getting cooler, getting white or even blue, to show that the surface of the water has cooled off. But the thing is, even the tropical cyclone heat potential is ridiculously warm. Look at all of these yellows, oranges, reds, especially right there across the central and western Caribbean, including Jamaica, the waters around Jamaica. Look at all of these reds. It is very much concerning, especially considering that this is for today's updated TCHP. You can see the very warm ocean water stretching all the way from the main development region into the Caribbean. And we know all of this has to do with how warm the waters are the deeper we get. And if we get a system, an airflow pressure, a tropical storm, or hurricane to sit over this or even move slowly, it could definitely churn up even more warm waters, not only at the surface like on this map, but at a greater depth and definitely fueling these systems, especially if we have little to no wind shear, and that in turn brings some amount of rapid intensification. We don't want to see that at all, especially across Jamaica where we have all of these systems, you know, rising in wind speeds 35 miles per hour or more. Remember what happened with Hurricane Otis in Mexico. We don't want anything like that, turning from a tropical storm to a category 5 hurricane within 24 hours. We don't want to see anything like that at all. That was ridiculous. So we have to stay updated. On another note, we have a post here from Andy Hazelton. He's actually a meteorologist at the NOAA, and he made a post here this morning stating updated C3S climate model mean continues to paint a favorable picture for Atlantic tropical cyclone activity this summer, with favorable Atlantic AMO and La Nina developing. This leads to rising motion focused in the Atlantic, as evidenced by the lower MSLP and enhanced rainfall. So we can see the positive AMO that he's talking about right here, with all of the way above normal sea surface temperatures curving from the northeastern Atlantic into portions of the Caribbean. So that's definitely setting the stage for a very busy season. He also highlighted this right here, the tremendous rainfall that is expected across the Atlantic into the Caribbean, as represented by the greens. As a matter of fact, if we take a closer look right here, you can see it even better. A lot of greens that represent way above normal rainfall expected. Jamaica right here. It's definitely concerning in a way. We don't want to see this happening or coming to fruition at all, because it could definitely spell some amount of bad weather, if not some flooding. But I'll definitely be here to keep you posted with exactly what unfolds. Taking a look at what the U.S. National Hurricane Center's Tropical Analysis and Forecast branch posted today. They actually posted it at 2:24 p.m., so just a couple hours ago. They stated a developing Central American gyre, so we've been talking about this for the past week, will bring increasing winds and seas and maintain strong thunderstorms for the East Pacific and Caribbean Sea. Heavy rainfall is also possible for parts of Central America. Marine interests and residents in the region need to stay alert. So we know the Central American gyre is basically when we have a broad airflow pressure setting up across the Central America region right here. We have most of the winds coming in from the southeast across the western to the central Caribbean, and then more of a turning, counterclockwise turning that is, and across Central America. And this in turn can spit out a lot of vortices, a lot of low pressure developing, in basically a lot of showers and thunderstorm activity taking place. And that is basically what the NHC TAFB is highlighting. But there's definitely going to be a Central American gyre developing, which could enhance the amount of rainfall that's expected across the Western Caribbean. They also posted another thing here stating animated winds, wind barbs in knot and seas, color coded in feet for the East Pacific and Caribbean Sea through Saturday. This week, both winds and seas will increase in the Central American as the Central American gyre strengthens. So we can see them posting the very high wind speeds that are expected, especially across the Central Caribbean, with those winds coming in from the southeast. We see Jamaica right here. We see the winds coming in more so from the west right here across the waters to the south of Mexico. So it's definitely shaping up for a broad airflow pressure to be kind of forming right here across Central America. So it's gonna be interesting to see exactly what unfolds, if we get a low pressure form on the East Pacific side, or do we get some low pressure systems to form on the Western Caribbean side. Either way, it spells tropical trouble, it spells a lot more rainfall, and I'll definitely be here to keep you posted with exactly what unfolds. As of right now, the U.S. National Hurricane Center's latest update shows that there's no tropical cyclone activity expected within the next 7 days, but that could definitely change as we move through time. However, according to the Atlantic Tropical Weather Discussion for today, they stated heavy rainfall in the northwest Caribbean and southeast Gulf of Mexico, abundant tropical moisture surging northward combined with mid to upper level defluent flow continue to generate showers and thunderstorms across parts of the northwest Caribbean. And we saw all of that even better on the latest rainbow satellite images. We see all the thunderstorms associated with the trough that has been plaguing section of Jamaica last week. We can see that now it has pushed out towards the west. Definitely a section of the Cayman Islands have been getting nailed today with a lot of shower and thunderstorm activity. We saw all of those reds, those high cold cloud tops across the Cayman Islands today. And the thing is, as the loop was moving ahead, the clouds were definitely still sitting across Haiti, so they were definitely getting in a lot of rainfall, if not some flash flooding. However, as it relates to what they're stating that dangerous lightning, strong gusty winds, and rough seas and low visibility are likely ongoing within this convective activity over these areas, including the offshore waters of eastern Honduras and Nicaragua. They're talking about right here to the southwest of Jamaica. And they stated that this convection will amplify while it shifts towards the southeast Gulf of Mexico and the Florida Strait for at least Thursday. Mariners should exercise caution, and they're basically stating that all of this is basically going to be pushing northwestward to the southeastern Gulf of Mexico, and there has been a lot of talk about it possibly causing a lot of rainfall across Florida. So if you have relatives in Florida, tell them to keep safe. There's definitely going to be some amount of rainfall that's expected, hopefully not as much as predicted to bring some tremendous flooding. If we actually take a look at what the supercomputer models are showing for the next 7 days, so we're just going to be going out to the next 168 hours. Keep your eyes glued right here on the timestamps. The next 168 hours is basically the next 7 days, and we're going to be keeping our eye on the western Caribbean into the southeastern Gulf near Florida right here. So let's put these maps into motion. First of all, we know all of the moisture is represented by what we see on the key on the right, the rainfall, represented by the greens, the yellows, the oranges. All of this represented in inches of rainfall. And as we go out in time, yes, we see some dots of green across section of Jamaica. This is just the Euro model, but we're going to be seeing if we see all of that on the GFS model as well. This is Wednesday, and we see a lot of dark greens and even yellows across portion of Florida, even section of the Bahamas getting in on the mix. And as we go out in time, we can see all of the moisture definitely has moved on by that time. Some of it has pinched off to the southwestern Atlantic, some of it has moved off towards closer to the northwestern Gulf of Mexico. But we can also see that we still have a lot of moisture sitting down there across portion of the Caribbean, including Jamaica. What does the GFS forecast show for the next 168 hours? We see some amount of rainfall affecting especially southern Jamaica, especially considering the southeasterly flow that the NHC was talking about. We're definitely going to be seeing some more rainfall coming into sections of some southern parishes. This is what we've been waiting for all along, and we're grateful, especially persons in Portmore and St. Thomas. Definitely some amount of rainfall expected. Continue to go out in time. We see even some yellows and some reds in there right there between Mexico and Cuba. Maybe some tremendous rainfall expected. And we see that most of the moisture seems to go into portions of the southern Gulf states close to Texas right there, just like what the Euro model was showing. The Euro has most of the rainfall more so to the west of there than what the GFS has. GFS has more rainfall though across those spots. We know how these things go. We have to take these forecasts with a grain of salt because they're not 100% accurate. They're not set in stone. As it relates to the accumulated precipitation forecast, the amount of rainfall expected within the next 168 hours, that's the next 7 days, we do see the purples that we can see by the key on the right that represent up to 2 to even 3 or maybe even 4 inches of rainfall, especially across the southern Caribbean, southwestern Caribbean, the western Caribbean, the Gulf of Mexico, right there near Florida where we see those burgundy, even some yellow colors that represent up to even 10 to 12 inches of rainfall. What does the Euro show? The Euro shows something similar, with the southwestern Caribbean, the western Caribbean, section of the Gulf of Mexico, and even section of Florida with that tremendous rainfall that's expected. Look at Jamaica right there. We see more so in the way of blues, especially across southern and eastern Jamaica. That represents maybe up to what, 2 inches of rainfall or so. The other maps from the Weather Nerds website actually confirms this with those reds across portions of especially southern and eastern Jamaica from both the Euro and the GFS maps. Keep in mind that all of these maps are basically showing the same thing with just different keys and colors. The main takeaway is that there's definitely going to be some tremendous rainfall across section of Mexico, western Cuba, and the Gulf of Mexico. That's Florida especially. Jamaica could get in on some of that rainfall, but it's nothing to hang your hat on. But we're indeed grateful that southern and eastern Jamaica are going to be getting a shift in weather pattern for some more rainfall in our neck of the woods. Taking a look at the surface map of the Atlantic for this evening, we can see a tropical wave right there to the southwest of Jamaica, another one right here across portions of western Venezuela, another tropical wave that's definitely plaguing northeastern South America, bring a lot of moisture into section of the Windward Islands, and we can also see another tropical wave that has just exited the coast of Africa. All of these tropical waves are moving towards the west, all courtesy of the easterly flow brought about by the ridges of high pressure that are across the open waters of the Atlantic. If we take a look at the visible satellite images of the Atlantic before the sun went down, we can see all the clouds associated with the trough that the hurricane center was highlighting. You can also see the low-level flow of these low-level clouds pushing in from the east-southeast, and there's definitely a lot more where that came from, especially tomorrow for section of southern and eastern Jamaica. We can also see the clouds being strung out, being pushed from east to west, all courtesy of the tropical wave across portions of northeastern South America. And we can even see all of that southwesterly flow associated with the monsoonal gyre from the Central American gyre. All of this starting to come to fruition to make more so of a broad area flow pressure associated with the Central American gyre. We'll be talking more about the rest of the Caribbean weather later on. Let us focus our attention on the prediction that was made in yesterday's video about the weather across Jamaica for today, Monday, June 10. It was stated that we would have received some morning rainfall across sections of some southern and eastern parishes, then some afternoon rainfall across sections of some northern and western parishes. And just for reference, we know southern parishes we're talking about: Westmoreland, St. Elizabeth, Manchester, Clarendon, St. Catherine, Kingston, St. Andrew, and St. Thomas. Eastern parishes, we're talking about those parishes in the county of Surrey, so Portland, St. Thomas, Kingston, St. Andrew. While western parishes, we're talking about those parishes in the county of Cornwall, St. Elizabeth, Westmoreland, Hanover, St. James, Trelawney. While northern parishes, we're talking about Hanover, St. James, Trelawney, St. Anne, St. Mary, and Portland. And what ended up happening? A post was made as early as 6:21 a.m. I tried to get the visible still image because at that time the sun was still coming up, but we were definitely having an east-southeasterly flow across the island, and the Cuban Doppler radar images at that time were confirming all of these clouds and showing some isolated shower activity within there, especially across St. Thomas. I live in St. Thomas, and we're definitely getting in on some light rainfall at that time, so that indeed confirms the rainfall. So 6:21 a.m. definitely showed that we were getting rainfall across the southern and eastern portions just as predicted. Also keep in mind that this post was made on our Twitter page at Weather Jamaica. It was also made on our Instagram page at weather.jamaica, on our TikTok page at Weather Jamaica, and on our Facebook page at Weather Jamaica 876. So if you have one of those social media platforms, please ensure that you follow us there, as we make posts throughout the day that you can't afford to miss. Taking a look at another post that was made at 1:30 p.m. we can see that we had some more rainfall coming into sections of St. Thomas right there. All of that squally weather, the greens, the yellows that we know on the Cuban Doppler radar, that represents light to moderate to even some heavy rainfall. So we definitely had some rainfall across sections of St. Thomas, sections of Portland, sections of St. Mary, St. Anne, sections of St. James and Hanover to confirm the afternoon rainfall there. Even some rainfall coming into section of southern Clarendon and even section of southern Manchester. And we have one of our followers on our Facebook page, Delroy Hines, confirming the rainfall in his area. 2 hours ago he stated, Tower Isle, St. Mary getting light to moderate rainfall this afternoon. So that indeed confirms the rainfall for northern Jamaica. If we take a look at See Jamaica's YouTube channel, we can see that it was a mostly fair day across Kingston. This is looking on the city view right here. We know See Jamaica, they actually show live streams of the corporate area, and we can see that it was a mostly sunny to partly cloudy day, very hot. I was definitely in Kingston feeling the heat. This is about 2:15 p.m. So that indeed confirms the dry weather in Kingston. But we had that rainfall across sections of some southern and eastern parishes. If we take a look at the visible satellite images of Jamaica before the sun was starting to go down, we see that flow from the east-southeast, and we definitely had some clouds coming into section of St. Thomas, pushing into Portland, St. Mary, St. Anne. Even some clouds right there across section of Clarendon, Manchester. We also had the afternoon rainfall across section of Hanover and St. James as well. So that indeed confirms the isolated afternoon rainfall that was predicted. As it relates to what the infrared satellite images are showing, let's reload these images so that we have the latest. Alright, so there we have it. We can see that we have somewhat of thunderstorm activity taking place right there offshore to the northwest of the island. Some high cold cloud tops left over from what was taking place across section of the Cayman Islands today. But we can see that for the most part, everything has started to clear out as we head into the nighttime hours. As relates to the latest Jamaican, the Cuban Doppler radar images showing Jamaica, we can see all of that rainfall right there to the northwest of Jamaica, some of that leftover rainfall out to sea coming off of Hanover and St. James. Don't see much coming in from the southeast at this time across the waters to the south of the island. And we do see some spots of greens that represent some rainfall here and there to the southwest. Taking a look at the temperatures right now, we can see that we're at 29 degrees Celsius in both Montego Bay and Kingston. And by about 4 a.m. on Tuesday, temperature should dip down to about 26 degrees Celsius in both Montego Bay and Kingston. Taking a look at the temperature forecast for tomorrow, this map from the GFS is showing 18Z on Tuesday. When we calculate that, that's 1 p.m. on Tuesday. And we see Jamaica right here, embedded in some yellows and some orange colors that represent anywhere from 1 to 2 degrees Celsius above average temperatures. And we know the average temperatures for the month of June across Jamaica are about 90 degrees Fahrenheit. When we take a look at the thermometer, 90 degrees Fahrenheit is about the same as 32.2 degrees Celsius. So we should be receiving anywhere from 32 to 34 degrees Celsius at most for Jamaica's temperature on Tuesday. As relates to the dry air map, we know the dry air is represented by what we see on the key on the bottom, the yellows, the oranges, the reds, and the whites within those reds. And we still have a tongue of dry air stretching all the way from Africa across the main development region into the Caribbean. A lot of this is associated with the Saharan dust, which we can see even better on this map right here. The Saharan dust is represented by all of the brown colors. And we can see the forecast for 2 p.m. on Tuesday. A lot of browns that represent the Saharan dust stretching all the way across the main development region into the Caribbean. One thing though, most of the vigorous plume of Saharan dust has dwindled by the time it entered the area that Jamaica is located right here. As we see more so of those lighter shades of browns than anything else in the forecast for 2 p.m. on Tuesday. So we're on the low end of the scale in terms of Saharan dust. What we don't want to see is these very dark colors that represent the vigorous plume that can cause the very hazy skies and trigger some amount of respiratory illnesses in some people. Taking a look at the wave forecast for tomorrow, we can definitely see some increase in the wave heights tomorrow. The Euro a bit more robust than the GFS. The Euro showing some purples right there to the south and east of the island that represents up to 2 meter wave heights. The GFS a bit more reserved with those blues surrounding the island that represent anywhere from 1 to 1.5 meter wave heights. And that's because the winds are gonna be a bit strong. We see more brighter shades of greens than anything else, even some yellows in some spots that represent anywhere from 20 to 25 knot winds, and we still see the general direction for the winds coming in from the east southeast. We also know what usually happens. We can get some of the rainfall coming off of the sea to affect sections of some southern and eastern parishes than anything else. And as usual, we can have that rainfall across section of some northern and western parishes during the afternoon if we get that air to pile up and bring some afternoon rainfall in some spots. If we get that diurnal convection, and with the upper level winds coming in from the north for tomorrow, it's definitely going to be favoring more of that rainfall across sections of some southern parishes than anything else. So maybe a section of especially St. Thomas, Kingston, St. Andrews, St. Catherine, Clarendon, Manchester, St. Elizabeth, and Westmoreland. And if we take a look at the actual rainfall forecast now, there's definitely going to be some more rainfall lingering, especially across sections of some eastern parishes tonight. And then into tomorrow's forecast, this map from the Euro is showing 3 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is actually 2 a.m. Jamaica time. And we do see the blues that represent rainfall across sections of some southern and eastern parishes, so we can rule out some more rainfall for sections of Portland and St. Thomas, spilling into sections of Manchester, Clarendon as well with that moist southeasterly flow. GFS not so robust with the Manchester, but definitely southern Clarendon and section of St. Thomas and Portland, just like what the Euro was showing. Skipping ahead now to 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is actually 7 a.m. Jamaica time. We do see the blues represent rainfall across the very same spots, eastern and section of some southern parishes than anything else, especially across St. Thomas and Portland. So it's definitely going to be wet for those areas. Then by 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, it's actually 3 p.m. Jamaica time, where do we see the blues represent rainfall? Clearly, the Euro is a bit more robust than the GFS, showing more of those blues that represent rainfall stretch all the way across the island from east to west, with more of those darker shades of blues across eastern Jamaica and southern Jamaica than anything else. GFS making more sense with having more of that rainfall across eastern, southern, and some western parishes, and maybe a section of St. James, section of Hanover, again something similar to what happened today, but especially section of eastern Jamaica is going to be picking up most in the way of rainfall within the next 24 hours. And the accumulated precipitation forecast maps are in consensus with this. So definitely section of the northwest, section of the south, section of the east on the Euro. GFS a bit less robust than the Euro. Euro showing up to 0.65 of an inch of rainfall across section of St. Thomas and Portland. GFS showing up to 0.45 of an inch of rainfall across the same spot. Either way, we have the consensus: northwestern Jamaica, southern Jamaica, eastern Jamaica. That's where the rainfall is going to be expected within the next 24 hours. Keep in mind that both of these maps from the Euro and the GFS are showing all the rainfall that's expected from now up until 10 p.m. on Tuesday. Not saying that's going to be raining from now all the way up until then, but these are the areas that are going to be picking up the most in the way of rainfall within the next 24 hours. And we're indeed grateful. We're in the month of June. We're in our secondary rainy season. So we'll take all the rainfall that we can get, although we usually receive up to 133.35 millimeters of rainfall during this month. We'll take all the rainfall that we can get to put some kind of a damper on the heat that we've been experiencing. Alright, so that's it for the forecast across Jamaica. Let us focus our attention on the rest of the Caribbean. Alright, so we can definitely see that the tropical wave is doing a number on section of the Windward Islands. So section of Grenada, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, maybe Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago especially. We see some of that rainfall coming into section of Venezuela, Guyana, Suriname, French Guyana, section of Panama, Costa Rica, Honduras, Guatemala, section of El Salvador, Mexico as well, even section of Nicaragua getting in on the mix. Definitely a section of the Cayman Islands were being nailed today, not to mention section of Western Cuba and the Bahamas, as well as sections of Florida. If we take a look at the wider view of Doppler radar images, just showing the northeastern Caribbean, was definitely a fair day across those spots. Didn't see much taking place across Puerto Rico, US and British Virgin Islands, or the Leeward Islands at all. But if we take a look at the Barbados radar, We can see all of that moisture pushing from east to west to the south of Barbados. Some lingering rainfall right there to the east of Martinique, heading into section of St. Lucia. But most of the rainfall across Grenada, Trinidad and Tobago were there. Definitely might even be experiencing some flash flooding taking place, and there's still a lot more to come for them as the tropical wave pushes through. We can also see all of that rainfall associated with what section of Cuba and Florida got today, not to mention section of Mexico, section of Honduras, and even Guatemala as well. We can see some rainfall across section of Colombia, section of the southern Windward Island, and some of that rainfall coming in associated with the tropical wave to maybe affect sections of coastal areas of Suriname and Guyana later on. If we take a look at the temperature forecast for tomorrow, we're still in consensus that majority of the basin should be experiencing anywhere from those grays to those oranges that represent anywhere from 1 to 3 degrees Celsius above normal temperatures for the most part. Below average temperatures expected for sections of the central to the eastern United States, all courtesy of a trough that's definitely bringing some cooler than average air to those spots. As related to the Saharan dust forecast for 2 p.m. on Tuesday, we do see the browns that represent all the Saharan dust, definitely across portion of the Caribbean into the Bahamas. But what we don't want to see is these very dark shades of browns across the main development region. The thing is, most of this is pushing towards the west. All of that has to do with that vigorous plume that can cause hazy skies and trigger some amount of asthma or sinusitis issues in some people, and we don't want to see that at all into portions of the Caribbean, but it's definitely going to be making its way there. As we can see, some of it has already started in sections of the eastern Caribbean. If we take a look at the wave forecast for tomorrow, we're seeing more so in the way of those blues across most areas that represent anywhere from 0.5 meter wave heights to 1.5 meter wave heights, while we have those purples to the south of Jamaica that represents the 2 meter wave height. That's because the winds are going to be strongest to the south of Hispaniola and Jamaica, where we see those 25 knot winds represented by the yellows. While we have more so in the way of those greens that represent anywhere from 15 to 20 knots across the rest of the basin. We see the general direction coming in from the east and curving northwards as we head into the western Caribbean. As related to the rainfall forecast now, where do we expect the rainfall to be within the next 24 hours? Definitely section of the Windward Islands still to be getting some more rainfall. So the Grenadine Islands, sections of Grenada, Trinidad and Tobago. Scrolling down, we can definitely expect even more rainfall for sections of French Guiana, Suriname, Guyana, Venezuela, Colombia, Panama, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, El Salvador, Honduras, Belize getting in on the mix, Guatemala, section of Mexico, southern Florida, sections up the Cayman Islands, and southern and eastern Jamaica. We see that both the Euro and the GFS models are in consensus with this. I will know that when they're in agreement like this, the chances of it actually happening are much higher. Alright, so that's it for today. Thanks for watching.